Excellent connection. Welcome to streaming now. I'm doing it. Sweet. So I think that it's only fair that I reveal myself for who I really am. There I am. That is a terrible color. What is that? Is not in a way who I really am. Okay. Well, we'll get it right. We'll get it right. Maybe we'll get it right. Oh, what did we do? Oh no. Um, Got to do everything in this way. Oh, wait, that's not the right thing anyway. Is it? Uh, no, no. Let's try it one other way. Okay. All right, great, cool. Whoa. What we got? Oh, wow. I'm looking a lot better now. I'm like a white person instead of a redskin. All right, what's up with this now? All right, okay. All right. Okay. All right. We're getting there. Transform in contact, baby. Um, wow. Uh, da, da, da. Get me out of a little over here. What's Osmond Gold do? He does like this. But I'm not as expressive, you know. But I should be over here. All right, cool. See if we can watch a video. All right, there I am doing that. I got zero activity. Oh wait. All right. The brain nugget. I had to take like 2 showers this morning to like wash away the sin of yesterday's stream. Ugh. No. Um. Okay.
let's address the elephant in the room.
Holy shit, is that a fucking elephant?
Software developers are going through somewhat of a rough patch. Millionaire vibe coders, 10x AI engineers, constant layoffs, or a pretty shitty economy are some of the main themes of the software world in 2025. However, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you probably know I don't play into the panic or the hype. Sure, the industry is changing, and anybody refusing to acknowledge the impact of AI in coding is lying to themselves, but the truth is, we are nowhere near the end of software development. And to prove it, we'll spend the next few minutes looking at what's actually happening in the industry beneath all the AI slop and karma farming articles. In the last...
Alright, I don't give a damn because we'll just change everything by doing something new. This is good though, or something like this. Huh? Oh shit. Yeah.
Kia, movement that inspires.
Oh boy, it's time for another MCP video. If you're not familiar with my takes on MCP, it's my favorite example of AI being a bubble. I know way more companies building observability tools for MCP stuff than I know companies actually making useful stuff with MCP. When you see everyone building the tool layer for a new thing and nobody building the product around the new thing, you know that new thing is probably crap. I still remember back in the day when...
Alright. I agree. There we go. My spam. Ooh. Wow. All right. What's that dude that I was just... We're doing this type of thing. Oh, not that. That's not what I wanted. I wanted like videos. Bring this one up.
You've earned this, so hold it up high. This isn't just a restoration, it's a revival.
The narrative, the hilarious narrative, is that DSP is a broke bum and begs all day. If you have an issue with me, come talk to me about it in person like a man. Publicly, I'm saying it to you right now. You're a bitch.
So he wasn't happy about the video, I guess. How many views did this video get? 900,000 views in one day.
Unless we get 50 subs by the end of tonight, don't ever ask anything of me ever again. Just sits here whining, bitching, complaining about things, wanting more, and doesn't support. So you get nothing.
Oh my, wait, this is his second video.
Phil was really mean to his audience. He said that they gave him no support and he was going to give them nothing from now on, which isn't what happened. What happened was I was talking specifically to the Kick viewers. There had been a big, sharp decline in support. It seemed to be directly...
So the out of context clip was making people think that you were begging for money, but the in context clip is that you were only begging people on Kick for money. No, now I understand.
Oh, I hate that Phil asks for money. Then you shouldn't have fucked with my livelihood. I never had to until people did. You made the monster. You're Dr. Frankenstein.
Oh, shit.
Now you gotta live with the monster you created, bitches. And if you don't like it, too fucking bad, because you don't have a time machine to go back in time and change what you already did.
Apparently is now Cope fake tipping himself.
Let's see here.
Wait, so he's inventing donations?
What? Because everyone that Asmongold talks about, positive or negative, gets a big boost, and people come to their content. No, I don't get that. Instead, all it was negative comments and downvotes on the on-demand videos.
Why did you do this? Yeah, why would I do that to him? I don't know why.
Publicly, I'm saying it to you right now. You're a bitch. Tell me that I'm a fucking beggar and I'm a scammer. Prove it. Unless we get 50 subs, you got an hour left. Get to it. Or shut the fuck up forever. We're not going to listen to your bitching anymore. A lot of whiny people, demanding people who don't reciprocate.
Looks good.
What happened to that? I gotta see that again. Okay, that guy failed. One down already on takeoff. One down. We saw that. Yeah, one guy fell over. Oh God, we died. Oh, come on, boys. Do you want to live forever? Not if you're an FPV pro, I guess. It's a flying corpse. And you don't come back with their FPV, bro. With their arm. The usual technique. This is flattery. The Ukrainians are being flattered to death.
Yeah, it's like that. Like
Yeah, that's a good way to score. In the box. Oh my God, are they gonna close the lid?
Prop's good on.
Ooh.
Time. No notes, but like.
Yeah.
Shard, fat shard.
Alright, check one.
Hey, what was yours?
4.2.
I would.
That was it.
You might have to push it down. It's not straight between the two.
You're kind of low, right? Basically over/passing SPF.
Kid 5. Kid 3.
The closest white tank holes is what I'm directly in front of. Hitting the green, not range right? Yeah. You know when we're like mad close to the ground, like cutting down on throttle, there's not. All right, sir, I'm ready.
Good, sir. Got it. Kid 4. All right, let's see what the timing looks like. Same thing, GCS operator yelling when that hits.
The white horse, right?
Oh. Oh, they get to play with that? They love that stuff.
You know, if I was gonna make it out.
Still gonna have a smile on your face.
Mag.
I hear that helicopter's coming over right now. There we are. And a donkey.
Unplug it. Pull.
Big ground in position.
1, 2, 3. Back down. Move back down the speed. We gotta go.
Good work. Outstanding.
Okay, if there's one AI site builder you need to meet, it's this dope tech from Wix. Now this whole flow is a conversation, so your words actually build your website. I'm going for a store, and after a free...
Jeez. Whoa. Did they survive?
the US and Canada work to protect the Philippines from China, Australia is helping China build missiles and nuclear weapons. A shocking bridge collapse, and Hassan Piker gets an unexpected surprise on his visit to China. And more on this week's China News Headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Socialist streamer Hassan Piker has been getting a lot of attention for his shocking behavior lately. Yes, I did go there. So did he. But now it seems like the tables have turned, and he's the one getting bullied by Chinese police. Piker was live streaming in Tiananmen Square, praising China and criticizing the US, when Chinese security officials saw him hold up a Chairman Mao meme on his phone. They immediately pulled his entire crew aside and asked to go through their phones. Looking for Xi Jinping Winnie the Pooh memes, I'm sure. Of course, Piker is a supporter of the CCP, and it would seem that hasn't changed, because afterwards, he attended a flag-raising ceremony in front of the Tiananmen Square Mao portrait, complete with kit. And later, he said this.
Because, like, by and large, especially, like, the government is aware of, like, how they are perceived, or how much, like, anti-Chinese propaganda exists out there. We're white. So, as foreigners in China, at this, like, national event rather than an international one, he thought he saw something on the phone. Like, he thought we were, like, making a mockery. You know what I mean?
Yep, the security saw their race and were worried that they might make China look bad. Total justification to stop them and go through their phones. Best country in the world, right there. And speaking of things China is totally best at, China has had yet another embarrassing engineering failure, this time with the 758-meter-long Hongqi Bridge, which collapsed mere months after opening, which I guess is better than weeks after opening. Progress? Luckily, police had already closed the bridge after cracks were noticed on the surface, so no one was hurt. Besides, the CCP's pride. Oh, just slap some LED lights on and I'm sure it'll be fine. Some netizens are saying that this happened because the ground shifted and had nothing to do with the bridge's engineering. Meanwhile, people with actual knowledge about architecture are saying that it collapsed because there were not enough anchoring pylons in the mountains. The pylons did not go deep enough and they weren't strong enough. So to all those CCP shills on social media who claim that Chinese architecture is actually superior to the West, well, I got a bridge to sell ya. Not long after that, this under-construction tunnel in Sichuan flooded, washing away an excavator. No word on the workers. Hey, America's good ally, Australia? They're supplying China with a critical mineral vital for hypersonic missiles and its nuclear program.
Fuckheads, you dumb cunts.
I tell you. The mineral is zirconium. And not only are two Australian zirconium mines majority owned by Chinese companies, but those mines both export 100% of their product to China. And Australian regulators apparently saw no problem with this. Here's a real picture of a regulator that saw no problem with it. What, Mr. Magoo?
Duddy.
You kids have no culture. Meanwhile, last month, the Australian Prime Minister signed a $3 billion critical minerals deal with the U.S. to reduce reliance on China. So while the Australian government is making mineral deals with the U.S., the Australian private sector is selling key minerals to Chinese companies with close ties to the CCP. Obviously, one answer would be tighter regulations, but the defense minister down under doesn't think tighter controls are needed. His reasoning is that other countries can just replace Australian exports, so nothing really stopped the CCP, which is like saying those bank robbers would have found a third gunman anyway, so it may well have been me. But it gets even worse. Four Corners, an Australian news program, obtained data showing that China is re-exporting some of this zirconium to Russia, helping to fuel Vladimir Putin's war machine, which has to make Australia feel pretty stupid. They could have just sold it to Russia directly. Think of all the profits they're losing. Since the Ukraine war began, Chinese zirconium exports to Russia have surged 300%, and some of that is coming from the company that owns one of Australia's zirconium mines. So Australia is sanctioning Russia, but also indirectly helping them. But Australia isn't the only U.S. ally helping China, because according to U.S. intelligence,
a viewer?
in the Biden era,
it's me,
China
right?
upgraded PL-15 and PL-17 missiles using technology from the United Arab Emirates. Now, once again, this is not so much about the UAE government betraying the US as it is about the private sector. It was the AI flagship company G42 that gave the technology to Chinese telecom giant Huawei, presumably for an enormous amount of something in return. But since there is no such thing as the private sector in China, the technology ended up in PLA missiles. No surprise there, and those missiles ended up being used by Pakistan in the clashes with India this past spring. Friends like...
For 15 years.
See, we're showing ads. We're good.
Creators across the world. Since day one, we have been thinking, how do we make video editing effortless? What if your tools could sense your creative pulse? This time, we've found the answer. Deeply powered by AI, Filmora 15 understands your intent, dissolving the space between thought and action. So storytelling moves at the speed of your imagination. When creativity and AI merge, every gap is gracefully bridged. With AI Extend, those almost moments find their perfect continuation. The shot keeps flying, and the energy never breaks. You stay in motion, and AI ensures every frame aligns with your vision. Free-flowing trajectories unleash new sparks of creativity. Even text transforms, breathing life into your message.
Say about some tips. Your feet need to look forward like this. Hello everyone, I'm Peter.
Data becomes rhythm. Charts become emotion. Inspiration and result finally united. Introducing new power features. Sub-projects. Dual timeline editing. Source and timeline preview editing. And your favorite features, now optimized for even smoother flow. Filmora gives you the freedom to immerse fully in your craft. Focus on what truly matters, telling the story only you can tell. This is Wondershare Filmora, powered by AI. Edit as an expert.
Confidence is not a mindset, it's an achievement. In the GMC Sierra HD AT4X. Get 3.9% APR on 2025 GMC Sierra heavy-duty models.
Friends like these, who needs enemies? Trying to murder you with weapons from your friends. U.S. officials have debated whether or not the UAE government knew about the extent of this help or was involved, and gave a sharp warning to the UAE after learning about G42's entanglement with Huawei, which is just a step up from a strongly worded letter, which I guess can also be sharp if someone got a paper cut from it. But on top of that, the UAE has also reportedly purchased Chinese drones for the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, its controversial proxy in the ongoing Sudanese civil war. I swear, all problems in the world tie back to the CCP. U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is seeking a reboot of U.S.-China military hotlines. Hegseth met with his Chinese counterpart, Admiral Dong Jun, and claims that both sides want to increase communication to avoid misunderstandings or escalation. At this point, I feel like talks with China have been unsuccessfully attempted more than communism. But hey, maybe he'll finally be the one to do it right. Hegseth also stressed that the two sides agreed that peace, stability, and good relations are the best path for their two strong and great countries, and concluded by saying, God bless both China and the USA, which, considering they're godless atheists, is going to be pretty hard for the man upstairs to do. Also, he's probably not the biggest fan of that whole genocide thing. But don't think that means Hegseth is going soft, because in the meeting with Dong, Hegseth brought up concerns about the South China Sea, and during the same trip, he unveiled a Philippine task force to deter Chinese coercion. The task force will allow the U.S. and the Philippines to improve coordination and strengthen cooperation on humanitarian responses to natural disasters, which, considering the devastating typhoon that just hit, is more necessary than ever. But it's not just the U.S. Canada and the Philippines also signed a defense pact to deter Beijing in the South China Sea. Yeah, watch out, China, or else Canada will get you. Oh, we're screwed. Talks are underway for similar Philippine agreements with India, Singapore, France, Germany, and the UK. Man, it's weird but nice covering talks on this channel that are actually productive. And it looks like President Trump is defending bringing in Chinese exchange students to American campuses. Take a listen.
You've said as many as 600,000 Chinese students could come to the United States. Why, sir, is that a pro-MAGA position when so many American kids want to go to school and there are places not for them, and these universities are getting rich off Chinese money?
Sure. Never said about China, but we do have a lot of people coming in from China. We always have, China and other countries. We also have a massive system of colleges and universities. And if we were to cut that in half, which perhaps makes some people happy, you would have half the colleges in the United States go out of business.
So what?
The age-old response for justifying working with China. But that money, though. Trump went on to suggest that historically black colleges and universities could go bankrupt as a result, and suggested that other countries might also have students spying on the U.S. And then he laid into the French. Okay. Everybody loves to make fun of the French, fair enough, and we're overdue to start calling them freedom fries again. But to be fair to Trump, he isn't suggesting that 600,000 new Chinese students should come to the U.S. He's just continuing visas for the ones who are already here. But with the risk of espionage, combined with the risk of TikTok that Trump continues to champion, I do wonder what agreements he and Xi came to at their recent meeting. Last week, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, who's on his 900th leather jacket and thinking, maybe this'll be the one that makes me look cool, made another controversial and shocking statement. He said he thinks China isn't lagging behind the U.S. when it comes to artificial intelligence, and that the Chinese Communist Party will win the AI race. Well, now he's softening his stance. Huang claims that he only meant that the U.S. and other Western countries were falling victim to cynicism and heavy regulations, while China is catching up due to energy subsidies that help lower costs for local developers. AKA, China sees the damage AI does to the environment and thinks we can damage it even faster. He also says it's vital that the U.S. win the AI race, and has suggested that more developers reliant on NVIDIA's world-class chips in order to win, which, of course, would mean ending restrictions that prevent China from buying advanced
We're back.
chips.
How you doing?
Surely Huang is saying that out of his concern for the U.S., not
My co-host.
because that. You gotta bridge this up. Again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.
It's time to ask more of our browser. Hey Copilot, adjust all these recipes for 7 guests and combine them into one cooking schedule. Also, I'm out of milk.
Here's a cooking schedule scaled for 7 guests and also milk-free.
Product, 2,000 earlier.
eBay 2025. Fendi, guaranteed authentic. Let me guess. Same.
Oh.
Fries with eBay authenticity guarantee.
What?
Chinese military getting a major upgrade at sea. Beijing has commissioned its most advanced warship ever. It is seen as a rival to our largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford, now off the northeast coast of South America. General Jack Keen's here to talk about it. General, nice to see you, sir. Always good to find out what the hardware race is here, and I have faith in our military, and I don't think we're going to miss a step. Nonetheless, here's what China is doing right now. About 1,000 feet long compared to the Ford, about 1,100 feet long. Here's the comparison. Displacement, 80,000 tons versus a larger Ford, 100,000. Aviation aviation force, 50 to 60 aircraft. We've got 75. The range is 10,000 nautical miles. The Ford is unlimited because the Ford is nuclear powered. It has to die every 20 or 25 years. General
Well, certainly we have a qualitative advantage here, and obviously we have 11 of these, and they have 3 of them. But what is China really up to here? Certainly, what they want to do is dominate military in the Indo-Pacific region, and they do have a decisive military advantage here, to be quite frank about it. And we have to deploy more of our capability into that region: offensive missiles, defensive missiles, drones, for sure, and other capabilities. What they really have in mind also is they want to dominate and project power globally, like the United States does. And that's what we're doing with our 11 aircraft carriers and our ships. And there's 2 ways you project combat power outside of your country. One is maritime at sea, and the other is on land. Well, the United States has somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 plus military facilities outside of the United States. 63 of them are persistent facilities that have troops, airplanes, and maritime ships at them. China has 1 military facility. So they, in terms of the United States and projecting combat power, and we're in 45 countries doing just that. It's really quite significant. This is what President Xi wants to do. He wants to be a global power to replace the United States. Having that influence, not just economically, which we've seen all around the world, but having that influence militarily as well is strategically what he's up to.
Okay, let me hammer home the point that you're making. And look at the map here. U.S. military bases in the Indo-Pacific. Significant, right? I mean, South Korea, Japan, Guam, Singapore, so we are there. In the meantime, we've watched this war in Ukraine for some time now. And this war, in part, is dragging on because warfare has changed. And drones...
A million. It's not very many.
We also buy drones from others, and they make a very good drone. Drone warfare has really come to the fore over the last couple of years because of this war.
He's precisely right about that. We are set to buy 1 million drones from the U.S. Army. What do you know about
From the U.S. Army?
Well, the Army's been at transition based on the drone warfare and its dominance on the battlefield for the last 18 months. I've seen 4 of their exercises, 1 in Germany, 1 in the United States and Louisiana. I was just out to the desert in California watching it there, and the jungle in Hawaii, and they're going to do another one in the Arctic in February. So the Army is taking a different path here than what they've done in the past. Usually we go to the schoolhouse, conceptualize something that's new, experiment it, test with it, and work out the bugs, and then start giving it to our units. So what the Chief of Staff of the Army is doing, he's telling the division commanders, we are going to make this change simultaneously in your region of the world where you are deployed, whether it's in the United States, Europe, the Pacific, or in the Arctic. And we're doing that and exchange that information. And I've never seen anything quite like it. And as I've said, I've seen 4 of these exercises. What has happened here is drones dominate the battlefield, as you indicated, and it's resulted in positional warfare. What you get is persistent surveillance from drones. In other words, they can see a soldier, kill him. They can see an artillery piece, kill it. See a command post, kill it. See a formation, kill it. Why? Because you very responsive rockets, missiles, artillery, bombs, precision fires follow that persistent surveillance. What the Army's trying to do, and that has resulted in positional warfare. We've talked about it here. Trench warfare like we saw in World War I. The Russians and Ukrainians cannot maneuver their systems effectively, so they infiltrate against each other at night. What the Army is working with to break that mold, the Army fights in layers, like the Marine Corps does, not at just division level, but at corps level and JTF level, beyond the battalion and brigade. And as a result of that, they can suppress the drones that are coming at them, and they'll carry counter-drone capability with them to get back to maneuver warfare. They are demonstrating the capability to do that, and no one in the world is doing that right now. And so our viewers understand, anytime we get a new weapon system, whether it was a tank, an airplane, a submarine, a machine gun. In this case, it's a drone. There is always a countermeasure that eventually gets developed and brings it back into balance. That is happening with counter-drone capability, drones themselves, directed energy lasers. What we're going to have, every vehicle eventually that's moving on the battlefield towards the enemy, at some point will have a counter-drone capability on it to be able to defend itself. The whole formation will kind of move in a bubble, so to speak, to protect itself from that. We're not there yet, but that's the path that we're on.
Wow, it's great stuff. You know it too. Wow. General, thank you so much.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews.
The reason we exist is...
Yeah. Well, thank you, General. The institutionalized general, the study of war.
You know, there was an interesting article that came up recently with some researchers had come up with this idea that they calculated that approximately 50% of the new articles appearing online are now generated by AI. So we're now at the point where the internet is quickly becoming saturated by content that maybe didn't even have a human involved at any stage.
Huh?
The question is what that means, right? Is that good that that's happening, or is it bad? But if it's bad,
Great.
that maybe didn't even have a human involved. 50% of the new articles appearing online are now generated by AI. So we're now at the point where the internet is quickly becoming saturated by content that maybe didn't even have a human involved at any stage in the production process. And I guess there's a question of what that means, right? Is that good that that's happening, or is it bad? But if it's bad, why specifically is it bad, rather than just it doesn't sound right? You know, can we think about it in a little bit more detail? Why would people generate content with AI is perhaps the first question to ask. And the answer usually comes down to because it might make money. Let's imagine that I want to change
Oh, fuck.
The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to produce a lot of content that people read, and then they get adverts at the same time, and then I make small amounts of money for each visit. Right? That's basically how the internet works. And I am not very good at things, right? So I'm not very good at cooking, I'm not very good at building things, and so on.
I've seen some of your websites, Mike.
You've seen some of my websites. You've definitely seen some of my drawing in previous videos. I'm not going to win any art prizes. Sort that out in post for me, please. I'm good at writing academic work, but I'm not good at writing, you know, creative work. So I need a way to produce a lot of content very, very quickly. And now I have all these chatbots and large language models that can do this for me. So my plan would be, let's suppose I start up a blog for, you know, recipes. Right? Now, I could have a completely plain website. This would be much easier for me to develop. A completely plain website that just has the kind of literal recipe pasted on it, right? I'd like this as a recipe website, right? Just absolutely nothing, no pictures, just follow these steps, please, and then you'll have food. But that's not actually what people read. What people want is a little bit of sort of flourish, a picture of what they might hope the food looks like if they can follow the instructions. But also, you know, often you'll see a little bit of narrative of why this recipe is important to a certain person, right? Maybe it was passed down from their grandparents or something like this. And that means something that they did that. That's the idea. And so maybe you think, well, if they bothered to hand this down, there must be some value in it. And so I'm going to try this recipe out for myself. So I want to do this, and I want to do it on the cheap. So what I'm going to do is just copy a bunch of recipes and then have AI write this narrative. So can you please take this recipe, write it into a nice web page, give some feel about a and I'll do this in bulk, and then create a website. Now, most people are not going to read it, right? Most people are not going to be interested in my personal ability to cook, even if my recipes are good because I copied them from elsewhere. I'm not sure what will happen if you just ask a large language model to come up with a recipe from scratch. It might, but ultimately
Probably read enough of them.
they've been used in the training set, right? So let's assume that would work as well. Either way, it's not about big numbers. It's about I've created now a website with almost zero cost to myself, and I put it online. I fill it with adverts, and then I just let small but notable amounts of money roll in. Right? That's what AI Slop is about. It's about creating content that some people probably don't want to read, but will find themselves reading they'll exposed to the advert, will be exposed to the adverts, and then from there we go, right? And the other reason you might do it is for like political reasons. So you might say, well, I want to get my point of view across by producing lots of AI that supports a certain position or refutes a certain position or something like this, right? So there's lots of reasons why you might do it other than just money, but often it comes down to money. The question is that a good thing that that's happening? And I would argue that it's very much not a good thing, right? And I think it's pretty obvious to most people watching why I might think that, right? I think it's important that there was a reason that something existed, right? That someone thought about it and curated it and tried things and came to a conclusion that this was something they were willing to endorse and recommend. In some sense, that's a subjective opinion, right? I don't know why sort of objectively that is better, but it feels better, right, to me. And so that's kind of where I sit. And so there's, huge amounts of talk about the threat of AI and artificial general intelligence and so on. I think a much more pressing and a much bigger issue is what is about to happen to the state of the web and political interference, fake news, fake websites in general just copying people's hard work and putting it elsewhere with an advert on, right?
We've not even got to video generation and deep fakes and all the rest of it.
Exactly.
Just
We've not even got there. And if you go on YouTube, there are loads and loads of videos that are some controversial political argument between two people, and the argument never actually happened, right? It's just complete fake narrative, slightly AI sounding, right? And they don't have huge numbers of views. They have, let's say, 5,000 views, which on YouTube is not that many.
Oh
but
no!
Some views, and they either change some opinions or they obtain some small amount of ad revenue. But either way, it doesn't seem like a very good thing. Let's revisit this research, right? So this research basically said what they've done is they've sampled a bunch of recently cached websites. They made decisions over whether they were AI or not, and they now calculate that the percentage of AI articles has now reached 50%, so gone above the number of human articles. They broke each document into chunks, and if 50% of the chunks were judged by an AI to be AI, then it's AI, right? Now, we can go this approach and decide whether we think that's a sufficient grounds to say 50%, but it's not 0%. I think that's important, and I think we all think it's going up, right? And you can see from the videos you recommended, or from the websites that get returned in searches, and so on and so forth, that there is an increase, right? And there's no reason really to think that it will go down because AI is not getting harder to use, right? There's more AI tools coming out all the time, and if there's money to be made, people will try and do it. And so let's assume the number is going up. What does that mean? Well, it has a few implications. First of all, it becomes much harder for search engines to give people the correct information and for people to find that information.
The quality of search engines is a different video. I think the current quality of search engines is probably...
It's a different video, right? But it's not an easy problem. And it also actually has a knock-on effect on the ability to train AI, right? Whether we like it or don't like it, most AI, the big large language models, are trained by scraping vast amounts of text from the internet, right? And, there are lawsuits going on about copyright, reasonably so, right? Because it's not decided what the ethically or legally correct way of doing this is. So search engines, we know, they work using web crawlers. So they work with automated software that goes around websites, it looks at links, it follows those links, it reads web pages, and it starts to index these websites for search later. In a way, AI crawlers do a very similar thing. They go to websites, they look for links, they follow them, they read text, and they put it into the training set, such that the models get better and better at writing good quality text. These web crawlers are running right now. They continue to run. And now the content that they're discovering is 50% generated by themselves, by AI. And so what effect does that have on the AI? Well, suppose that AI has a certain style of writing. And we sometimes you see these kind of, should we say, AI mannerisms in the text, right? Whether we like them or don't, they do exist. These things are going to occur more frequently in AI-generated text, almost by definition, which means that the training set will then have an increased number of these things. Consider also that AI, as we know, has a chance of producing text that isn't true, right? Because they predict words, and those words may align to phrases and sentences that are false. The outcome will be that of the 50% of the web that's now produced by AI, some of it won't be true. And that goes in the training set as well. Let's say, optimistically, or what your facts produced by your LLM are 95% accurate. Now 5% of the 50% is false. So your training set is now more false than it was before, right? That's assuming that the internet was completely correct before we started, which of course is a different, you know. So.
All right. So, well, we're pseudo clip farming here for the future clip farming, but misinformation doesn't add up. So, you know, maybe don't believe everything you read. Maybe AI should learn that.
It's not hard to see that if you iterate this process, the percentage of correct information on the internet and the percentage of good quality text from which to learn will decrease.
I know from my time working with you and your colleagues and training neural networks,
That's good.
image recognition and things like that, that often you use synthetic data in that, which is, as I understand it, things like, well, AI-generated data or mirrored data or things where you want to just increase the size of the data set.
Yeah.
And that seems to work. So what's the problem here then?
I mean, I think it works if you're very careful, right? Often, if you produce only synthetic data and you train something, it won't work on real data, or it will work less well than you'd hope. And that's because there are subtle differences between your ability to produce synthetic data and, you know, capture real data. So maybe you want to detect, you know, problems in MRI scans of people, right, for medical imaging. You could produce a bunch of fictitious MRI scans rendering software with a bunch of fake illnesses in it, and hope that that would produce better results when trained on real patients, tested on real patients. But, you know, the answer is it might not. So what you often do is you mix synthetic and real, right? But you're always working to make the synthetic as good as you can. You don't purposely put in bad and misleading synthetic data. And I think also you don't typically just use synthetic data.
So it's carefully curated then?
It's carefully curated, and I think that's probably where AI training will have to go. Right? I think it will become unviable to just scrape everything on the internet. If a large proportion of the internet becomes written by AI, you will have to be much more careful scraping that data. But there's a problem of scale. The reason we scrape automatically is because the web is too big for a few people to read. If you think that these models are trained on possibly trillions of tokens, right, trillions of words and phrases, the idea that we can look at them and go, oh no, that's a bit of AI, stop, I won't use that in the training set, is not practical, right? So then you're trying to build systems to detect what is and what isn't. And you end up using sources you trust, right? You say, well, I know that this website produces good quality human written text, so that's what I'm going to focus my scraping on, right? And actually, I think in a way, that may be where we as people and as people who consume this content may go as well, right? If you know that a certain website has specialists who write on a certain topic, you might prefer to read that than you would some generic AI-written blog that may or may not represent the true facts in this case, or certainly hasn't got a person overseeing that process.
Do you know what the...
Hi, got this old thing?
All right. It'll wear you out, man. What to say? Oh. God, it's still going. It's too much. It's starting to get sloppy, but we'll finish it out. We'll deal with that.
You that it's, you know, it's likely to be okay.
Likely, not always.
But we get so much email every day, and some of it is absolute tripe spam. Maybe it's scams, all that sort of thing, phishing emails. But also huge amounts of emails from retailers. I've got an email address that I've had since the 90s. It gets a huge amount of unsolicited email.
Yeah.
And this feels like it's similar to kind of what's going on with the web at the minute.
I think in a way that's exactly right. And maybe that's also sort of a premonition as to what will happen next. It could be that as we decide, I don't want to read this because I don't think it's either factually accurate or particularly useful to me, I want to read something written by a person who is an expert, then I might stick to specific websites I know and trust, right? In the same way that I stick to specific recipients of emails that I know and trust. And I broadly ignore the kind of low-level spam that goes on and just goes into my junk mail folder, or sometimes into my inbox and then to my junk mail folder when I see it, right? And so actually, we could imagine a situation where the internet fills with AI-written stuff that no one really reads and everyone broadly ignores. It occasionally gets some use, but is not actually improving much, right? You know, a bit like how I don't think most people think that we're better off for getting all these spam emails. On occasion, some company that you really like will draw your attention to a product that's on sale or something
Or a
like this.
promotion or
But in some ways, that isn't spam. That's you having a specific company you like, right? And in the same way that when you receive an email from me, you hope it will be at least somewhat useful, right? And again, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I think that's exactly what might happen, right? You know, given that we probably can't stop people using AI to produce generic content, we may just start to ignore it. Right? Or maybe we install, let's say, plugins for our browser that say this is a spam website, and we just don't even go to it. I'm assuming here that AI won't continue to improve in a way, and of course it might, right? Someone might come up with some new technology or some new way of training that massively improves the rigor of some of these articles, right? That's an assumption that that might happen.
I'm always wary when making these assumptions. When we did the video with a professor from Cambridge who talked about, oh, no AI will ever beat people at Go.
Yeah, exactly, right.
3 months later,
you know,
it did.
and in a way, I'd like to make no assumptions, right? If AI becomes way better, obviously there's still a place for experts and, you know, let's say reporters that you know and trust, and you know they will deliver the facts and they will fact check those things, right? If AI doesn't get better, then that's definitely the case. Either way, I think, as I already mentioned, I personally think that having a human there
I'm here.
gives some weight to it, because someone who's trained
I'm
and
fat.
effort
I just ate like a hog.
to curate this content.
I'm curating right the fuck now.
Put their name on it. I think that's worth something. Right? And so I think
Thank
that
you.
will be
Thank you for your work. Thank you for your service.
in the short term, there may be a knee-jerk reaction that there is no demand, but I suspect we will find that over time we come back to some of these content sources because they're better and give us more value.
Oh, all right, cool. Thank you, researchers. Mike. Thanks, Mike. What the fuck? This looks like an AI generated article. There you go. The key takeaway. Can I take it away? Okay. Superintelligence is hyperintegration of the metasystem. Boy. But how to integrate a metasystem? Is my AI generated content working? Am I banned? No, I'm just abandoned. I'm abandoned. How do I not get back? There I am. Sweet. God, I look fat. Alright, well, we'll stop wasting, this valuable bandwidth here.